Tappei has just released Arc 7 Chapter 14. This will be a summary containing what happened in that chapter. I highly recommend you check my summary for Arc 7 Chapter 13 first though. Anyways, let's get into the video. The chapter begins and we see that upon hearing that Abel was in fact the 77th Emperor of Wallachia, we see that Subaru's mind went white. However, it's not due to the fact that he didn't understand the words or because he was confronting royalty. In fact, this was the first time Subaru was confronting royalty in either world he had been in. Ever since Subaru arrived in this world, the Lagunican royal family all died due to an illness. Felt, who was suspected to be a member of the royal family, did not count, namely due to herself not accepting that she was a royal or due to the fact that she didn't have a trace of royalty in her. In other words, the people with the highest position he has met are the sages, the Duke Krush Karsten, Roswell L. Mathers, or potentially someone like Emilia who is a candidate for the throne. Either way, Subaru needs to stop escaping from reality. Subaru knew that Abel was not an ordinary person when he met him in the jungle. However, Subaru says if that's true. Vincent asks if Subaru doubts his words, and Subaru agrees, asking why would he bump into the most important person in the forest. Subaru stares at Abel, who is wearing his mask, and he repeats himself, stating that how could one trust someone who hides his face? This is a reference back to Arc 7 Chapter 12, where Subaru said this and Abel removed his rags. Subaru repeated his words and Abel, just like last time, removed the demon mask. We see that Subaru and Vincent look really similar. Both have piercing eyes and dark hair. However, if you looked more closely, they would look different. Vincent has a unique charm that is hard to look away from. Subaru doesn't recognize Vincent's face. Vincent replies that it's only natural since many people want his head. Subaru asks if being kept hidden is a part of a self-defense mechanism, and Vincent again reconfirms the beliefs of Wallachia: the strong shall survive and climb, and the Emperor is also included in that equation. That's the reason why the Wallachian Empire is strong. Subaru, who had spent time in the Imperial camp, knows that Vincent's words are true after speaking to Todd. Subaru understood that to the Wallachian people, victory is the way of life and is the solution to everything. It was the way of life that said long live the Empire. To that end, they would even burn down the forest to eradicate the Shudrak people, or even launch an offensive at their own Imperial encampment. Wait a second. Subaru caught onto something. If he was the Emperor, why did he kill his own soldiers? He's the Emperor. He could simply walk into the camp and talk to the higher-ups and tell them to release Rem instead of killing them. Vincent told Subaru that's suicidal, and Subaru is confused. But Subaru realized it. Vincent said he was ousted from the throne, and he asks for confirmation, but Vincent says he won't repeat himself. Either way, Subaru understands the whole picture now. Vincent states that the goal of the Imperial encampment was to find and kill Vincent. However, Subaru counters this, saying that their goal was to find the Shudrak people. Subaru ponders this, realizing the guards weren't lying to Subaru and Rem in that loop. In other words, they believed that they had to look for the Shudrak people. However, the true goals of the higher-ups was to find Vincent. By the way, this pretty much is stated in the Vincent side story, which you should really check my summary for or read a translation of it. So go to the link which should be above. Anyways, let's continue. Vincent again reconfirms that the encampment and Imperial soldiers had to die. And in return, Subaru and Rem were able to survive. He then states that people who die have no sway over the living, something Subaru ponders over. Subaru thinks about Abel's words and realizes he has a way. He thinks about returning by death so he can save the Imperial camp. Subaru mutters, "I have," but then he thinks that he doesn't have the guts to die to save the Imperial encampment. Rem and Subaru were safe. That's all that mattered. Why would he risk everything for a slim chance at making everything better? Vincent looks at Subaru with pity and asks why Subaru has this duty to save people. Subaru is confused. Vincent continues that Subaru has covered his mind with the deception of charity, and this is how Subaru has deliberately formed himself. Subaru displays anger at this judgment. Vincent doesn't understand Subaru or the nature of return by death. He isn't qualified to judge Subaru. Subaru again redirects the conversation back to the Imperial encampment. The people wanted the shudrak people, not to kill Vincent. Subaru wants clarification. Vincent explains that him leaving the throne is a secret. News of him being ousted would weaken the Empire. Furthermore, they want to kill the Shudrakians because that's like cutting off the limb of the Emperor. Subaru inquires why. Vincent explains that the previous Emperor saved the Shudrak. Since they do not forget a favour, they would then help the current Emperor. Vincent won the first round of the fight, and Subaru states that the battle is not yet over, and Vincent agrees. Vincent states that he's still alive, and as long as he's alive, he will continue to fight and take back what is his. Subaru realizes there will be a war between Vincent and the Shudrak versus the Empire, especially now that they burned down an Imperial encampment with over 100 Imperial soldiers killed. Subaru also ponders over the loss of life that happened. It was different to the White Whale fight and the attack on Pristella. Again, this is a difference to Vincent's values and Subaru's values on life. Ever since Subaru arrived in this world, he met rational people. All of these people could be talked to and reasoned with. There were a few exceptions, like the witches and the Sin archbishops, but apart from that, everything was fine. This was until he met the Shudrak people and the people of the Valakian Empire. It was too much. Subaru just wants to take Rem home. If this was someone else's problem or an event in the past, Subaru would happily turn the page to see what would happen next. But this was real life. Subaru was alone in the middle of a random country. There was about to be a civil war and massive conflict. Subaru didn't want to partake in it and change history. Subaru would take Rem and meet with Beatrice and Emilia and the rest of the group. Subaru asked Vincent for the direction to the nearest town. Vincent says it's best to walk a path which is paved. Subaru thanked Vincent for saving Rem. Vincent also mentions Louis, and of course Subaru realizes that Louis being saved was good due to the situation he was in. Subaru again thinks that the Shudrak shouldn't battle, but Vincent states that the forest would have burned down, therefore it's also their fight because they were going to be targeted. Subaru notices that Abel only actually blinks one eye at a time. This prevents both eyes being closed at once. Subaru again mutters that being the Emperor was tough, and Vincent hears this and states that of course neither you or anyone else can take my rightful place. We see that Subaru has decided to separate from the Shudrak people and is making his way to the nearest town. The people of Shudrak were fine with Subaru going off. Zelda was the one who agreed with Subaru's decision since she was the chief. No one stopped Subaru. Subaru started sharing parting words with Utakata. Of course, this was the girl that killed him in the previous loop. Like the rest, she was a Shudrakian person. Utakata states that she won't die and that Subaru shouldn't die. Subaru ponders on the chances of Vincent and the Shudrak winning. It was essentially Vincent versus the Empire, but if Vincent could win multiple battles with devious schemes, it could potentially work. Subaru heard a voice saying, "I'm ready." This was Rem. It seemed it was unexpected, but Rem actually did agree to leave with Subaru. In fact, Subaru was thinking of abducting Rem in the middle of the night and running away if Rem would resist. We see that the Shudrak people built a contraption to allow for Subaru to lift the weight of Rem on his back, like a tailor-made Rem backpack. Since Rem can only walk slow due to her legs, it would take several days to reach the nearest town, so Subaru carrying Rem would be a better idea. Zelda then states that it's fine for Subaru to worry about their upcoming conflicts with the Empire, but it's their fight. Furthermore, Zelda and the Shudrak are happy with Subaru's decision. Subaru's goal now is to ensure that Louis and Rem are kept safe. Subaru wonders if he'll see the shudrak again. Either way, Subaru is ready to leave. We also see that Kuna and Holly, so the blonde dyed hair girl and the green dyed hair girl, are escorting Subaru and the group to the nearest town. All the characters meet in the village entrance. The shudrak say their farewells. Subaru looked to see if he could spot the demon mask, but he couldn't spot anything. It's to be expected, they didn't have that sort of relationship. Subaru shouted, "I'm off!" and Lewis shouted alongside him as they made their way to the nearest town to avoid the war. And that is the end of the chapter. Honestly, nothing much really happened this chapter. It was just an ideological battle between Vincent and Subaru. We got some more information on Vincent's behavior and the way he thinks. But furthermore, honestly, nothing much really happened. But at least we know that we're now going to the city that is nearby. Honestly, I do think that Subaru will die. I don't feel like he'll be able to escape the Shudrakian tribe. I feel like he's going to die, and he's going to reset right in the middle of his talk with Vincent, and Vincent's going to pick up on Subaru's weird mannerisms and realize that Subaru can return by death. But anyways, that's my prediction. What do you guys think will happen? Anyways, I'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching, and thank you to my channel members.